Okie dokie, Pickle. One less thing to do today, and that's talk a little bit of Coaching Carousel. There's only one R in carousel.
Are you sure?
Promise you.
It's a carousel.
So we've got two things to talk about, both in the DFW Metroplex, and both of which are a bit noteworthy. So I haven't been on Twitter in 15 minutes, so I don't know if it's official yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it is overwhelmingly reported. It is now like a done deal in everything except announcement, unless it's been announced, that TCU has their new head coach. Of course, you remember TCU parted ways with Gary Patterson during the middle of the season. Jerry Kill, who, by the way, is going to go be the new head coach of New Mexico State.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Kill served as the interim. They have now landed on their head coach, and it's a guy who knows his way around Fort Worth because he plays there every year. And that would be Sonny Dykes, the head coach of the SMU Mustangs. TCU poaches the coach of their rival, which is certainly noteworthy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it adds a little spice to the skillet, so to speak. It is noteworthy, and it's important to remember that what Sonny Dykes has done at SMU is pretty remarkable. Okay, he took over a program there at SMU, which I don't think was in dire straits, but he was a bit of damaged goods coming out of Cal.
They definitely weren't seen as a title contender in their respective.
So he was a bit of
conference.
damaged goods coming out of Cal. It didn't go well for him. Now, I also think, personally, I think Cal's a bad job.
It is.
And I don't think Sonny Dykes suddenly became a terrible coach when he was from the time he went from Louisiana Tech to Cal. But that's neither here nor there. He has like a retrenching year as an offensive analyst at TCU before he gets the head coaching job at SMU. And he's done a pretty remarkable job there at SMU. He's 30-18 there at SMU, including that 10-win year back in 2019. And yeah, he has done an excellent job there at SMU. And what I think is really impressive about what he's done is that he has really built them into having an identity, which is we are the team of Dallas. We are going to circle. We're going to draw a circle around the DFW Metroplex, and we're going to grab the best guys, and we're going to bring them in. That's why you see all these billboards around Dallas. Whenever they've got a kid who's from that town, it says like,
and he did a really good job of hiring people that were able to make that possible.
We'll get to him in a moment. And I think that TCU looked across town, and they go, "Huh, that is pretty interesting." Now, and I want to preface this by saying that I do think that he's a really good football mind. I think he knows what he's doing around a playbook. What I'm about to say is not about that. I think he's a pretty good football mind. I think he knows what he's talking about. But I think TCU, much like Tech, looked around and, much like, for example, USC, looked around and they said, the name of the game, especially in the new Big 12, without Texas and Oklahoma, and with Houston, BYU, UCF, and I always forget the other one. Cincinnati, thank you. With the new Big 12, the name of the game is talent acquisition.
Yep.
We will figure out the schemes later. But the name of the game is talent acquisition. And there is no doubting that Sonny Dykes and his staff know how to acquire talent, especially in the major metro area, in the DFW metro area. They've done an excellent job of that at SMU. I think, plain and simple, and SMU fans are not going to like this, but it's the God's honest truth of the matter, that the conference that SMU is in, the American Athletic Conference, what they are going to look like after realignment and what the Big 12 are going to look like in realignment, that gap widened.
Yes, it did.
The Big 12 is now a better conference than the American Athletic Conference by a larger margin.
And for a second there, it was looking like it was trending that the Big 12 was falling a lot
That's
deeper.
exactly right. Instead, I think that the way that it's shaping out and the way that with the AAC, the AAC is going to lose both of the teams that are in their conference title game and the team that won a mythical national championship to the Big 12.
Yep.
And basically the AAC is going to pick up some Conference USA teams. So that gap has widened. And I think that in that new look Big 12, they looked and said, we're going to need a guy who can go and acquire the kind of talent we need around the DFW Metroplex to do it. And I think that that's what they got in Sonny Dykes. They also reportedly, and again, all this is reported because TCU hasn't announced. All this is reportedly, they're also adding Rashad Samples. Rashad Samples was the assistant head coach at SMU, and he is also an excellent football mind. That is not to say that he's not a great football mind, but he is recruiting ace.
That's where you get your bang for your buck.
He is the star of the show on the recruiting side. He is the guy that he's the straw that stirs the drink from a recruiting side. And so they're importing that across. They're importing that across the Metroplex.
It's getting really hyped over here.
They're importing that across the Metroplex from SMU to TCU. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's going to make the battle for the Iron Skillet pretty fun.
It will.
Really fun. Also of note, it sounds like, speaking of USC, it sounds like Brian Carrington, who was the director of player personnel,
yes,
or basically the head recruiting guy out there.
Whichever title they give him.
Formerly at the University of Texas, went out to USC. Sounds like he's coming to join TCU staff as well. They're trying to build a recruiting Death Star.
Yes.
That's what they're trying to do. They're looking, I think both TCU and Tech looked at the new landscape and they go, we have got to double down on talent acquisition, and they did. Mm-hmm. I think he's a pretty darn good football coach. We're going to see how it works out at TCU. Filling the shoes of a legend is not easy, but they've got a guy that they believe can keep that program up near the upper echelon of the new Big 12. So that leaves and by the way, I'm trying to think. I guess the last time we had an in-state coaching move at the FBS level was Tom Herman.
Yep.
Tom Herman moving from Houston over to Texas, and then prior to that, it was Sumlin moving from Houston over to A&M. Okay. So that leaves us with SMU as open, and SMU. This is the funniest part of this.
And what I think is SMU actually open?
This is what I think is the funniest part of this. SMU has announced their new head coach. TCU has not acknowledged that they have taken Sonny Dykes, but it is, again, fait accompli. It's going to happen. They have announced their new head coach, and their new head coach is Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley. That's R-H-E-T-T. Rhett Lashley. And Rhett Lashley is coming to Houston, or coming to SMU from Miami, where he was the offensive coordinator for the past couple of years under Manny Diaz. Now, I do not know, to be very clear about this, I do not know what Manny Diaz's history, or if Manny Diaz is long for that world at Miami. They're going through an athletic director change. There's a whole lot of things going on there. But I don't think that has anything to do with this, because Rhett Lashley, who I believe becomes, let me think this through. He's 38. I think he becomes the youngest head coach. I need to check how old Jake Spavital is. That would be the one guy.
Yeah, I bet tell you.
He may be the youngest head coach in the state. In any case, and I guess supposedly, I don't know. Maybe
Spav is 36.
36, okay. So he's the second youngest. Rhett Lashley comes to SMU to take over for his first ever head coaching job. Never been a head coach. Now he has been on the fast track for a while.
Oh yeah.
He was a quarterback at Arkansas in the early aughts. He's from Arkansas. He's from Springdale, Arkansas. So if you're interested in that kind of thing. And he was on the fast track. Okay, he went through. He did some GA stuff at Arkansas and Auburn. He went through the FCS ranks. He was the offensive coordinator for Auburn from 13 to 16, and just went on and really was on that quick rise there from there. He was Gus Malzahn's offensive coordinator there at Auburn. Is that right? Yeah. And so Lashley then followed Gus Malzahn. He's of the Gus Malzahn tree. Goes over to to Arkansas State, then to Auburn with him and stuff like that. I had that reversed. Arkansas State, then to Auburn. Bounce around at UConn, and you're probably thinking, okay, Tepper, get to the point. What's the SMU tie? He was the offensive coordinator for Chad Morris. Chad Morris? No, Sonny Dykes. He was the offensive coordinator for Sonny Dykes in 2018 and 2019 before he moved on to be the offensive coordinator at Miami. So he's got ties there. 38, first ever head coaching job. Okay? But he knows the landscape after spending a little bit of time there. And he is a guy who this is a bit of a risk from SMU. TCU went with the established head coach. Okay? And actually SMU's last coach that they brought in was Sonny Dykes. And say what you want about him, he had head coaching chops. Chad Morris did not. But at the same time, it went okay. Before that, they hired June Jones. June Jones was a long time, he was successful for a long time, at the coaching level.
Well, and if their tie is to Sonny Dykes, you have to know that he was the one that probably suggested and went to bat for him when all this was happening. So that says something.
Correct. That said, let's be clear about this. Rhett Lashley is known as an offensive whiz. He is known as a guy who is very thoughtful. He's known as a guy who knows his way around an offensive playbook. We do not know what a Rhett Lashley run program looks like. We don't. There's a lot of unknowns there. Furthermore, I think that the hill gets steeper because of who Sonny Dykes is taking with him to Fort Worth. With Rashad Samples, with reportedly the offensive coordinator, some other guys like this. Now, again, that's not to say that he's a bad hire, because I think that this is one genre of hire that you can make, which is the hot assistant. Okay, this is more in line with hiring a guy like Dave Aranda at Baylor. Okay, who had never been a head coach either. Ask Baylor how that's working out.
Seems pretty good,
right? There are ways of going about that. For SMU, they're going with the younger guy who does not have those kind of chops. I also think that for a job like SMU, there's not a lot of harm in doing that for a couple of reasons. One, if you can continue the idea of being the team of Dallas, then you can help to continue to seal those borders. You have that built-in recruiting base. You can continue to do that, and maybe a young voice like Rhett Lashley and an exciting offense is going to pay dividends.
Well, and then it's one of those things, if he moves on later on and it goes well, and then he recommends someone, you've got that whole SMU tree that just keeps going at that point.
Right. Furthermore, the other thing is Rhett Lashley is a guy who I think will be able to generate a little bit of excitement there. The offense is certainly going to put some butts in seats. They're going to be exciting. And I think that especially in a quarterback with a quarterback-friendly offense like he runs, I think that you are going to see him do a good job, be able to acquire some talent in that regard. Now, this is not a slam dunk. It could blow up in their face, and I also think that for SMU, they're kind of forced into this position because the coaching carousel now spins faster and faster and faster every year. And if you're looking for a guy with head coaching experience, you're either going to go with a relative retread, or you're going to be looking at like the lower, a Conference USA coach or someone like that, or even like an FCS coach, right? Because now the coaching carousel, nobody's getting the time to be able to build up their resumes. Right. I mean, look at the coach at Missouri, to draw from personal experience. Eli Drinkwitz was the head coach at Appalachian State for a year. One. Before he was the head coach at Mizzou, an SEC program. The coaching carousel spins faster. And so as a result, if you can identify, and especially in a place like SMU, which, God love them, let's see what happened with their last two coaches. Chad Morris got poached by the SEC. Didn't work out there, but he got poached by the SEC. Sonny Dykes comes in, he gets poached by your crosstown rival in TCU. SMU has had trouble holding on to coaches because when you succeed, you look to the next level. You look to the next step. if you had gotten some sort of word from Rhett Lashlee that this is where he wants to be for the long term, that would go a long way.
Yep.
Now, money talks and BS walks. Ask Lincoln Riley. Mm-hmm. But that, to me, I would be very interested in what those conversations were like with between Rhett Lashlee and athletic director Rick Hart. Because I would think that Rick Hart at least got some sort of assurance that he wanted to be there. And this was not a stepping stone. This was a place he wanted to be for a relatively decent amount of time. Now, again, money talks, BS walks, et cetera, et cetera. Rhett Lashlee is going to be the new head coach. He's an exciting young head coach. We don't know what his program is going to look like. But I think that he does have a foundation to build on that could set him up for success.
And the coaching carousel continues here. Ish just sent that. SMU's Kenny Perry is joining Joey McGuire at Texas Tech as an assistant head coach and special teams coordinator per sources. Great to see Perry and McGuire reuniting in Lubbock. That comes from Max Olson. So yeah,
Texas Tech's trying to build a recruiting Death Star.
I was going to say this.
They're trying to build a talent acquisition Death Star out there, and bringing a guy like Kenny Perry who knows his way around Texas and is what he and Joey McGuire are thick as thieves. That's another big move. Anyway, the coaching carousel will continue to spin. We have 2 new FBS coaches in the state of Texas. Exciting times.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.